Hi, my name is Jake, and I'm going to tell you a story. It's not anything made up, but a real life experience I had. It might not sound real when I explain to you what happened, but I assure you, it is. The story begins when I was playing Plants vs. Zombies 2 on my iPad. I was playing through Dark Ages. Definitely had to be the hardest world in the game so far, but I was still having fun. I managed to beat the last wave, and the level ended with me getting a new seed packet. I found that strange because there wasn't a seed packet after this level, if I can recall correctly. The plant I obtained was a mushroom, and it was a mushroom I've never seen before. It was a sickly looking shade of green, and its cap was covered in disgusting warts. It also had a mouth full of small, sharp teeth, and its eyes were covered by its lumpy cap. The plant's name was Putrid Shroom, and its description just read, "the most sickening of all fungi." I exited back to the world map, and just like I assumed earlier, there was no seed packet after the level I had just finished. I wondered what this plant could do, so I entered the next level, selected my plants, one of them being the Putrid Shroom, and began. I planted some sun shrooms to obtain sun, puff shrooms to take out any peasant zombies that walked onto the lawn. You know, typical stuff you do in a level. Then a buckethead peasant walked onto the lawn in the middle lane. I figured now would be a good time to try the Putrid Shroom, so I planted it once I had enough sun. The plant didn't do anything at first. It just sat there as the zombie approached it. Maybe this was an instant use plant like a potato mine? The buckethead reached the Putrid Shroom and began to eat it. The shroom disappeared after a couple bites, but then the buckethead stopped moving and its eyes dilated. The zombie then turned and vomited on the tile behind it. A large green puddle of liquid splattered onto the tile, and I thought I saw some droplets of red mixed in. The zombie then fell back, dead. Just then, the puddle of vomit started to bubble, and then it turned into another Putrid Shroom. Another zombie approached the plant and the same thing happened. I beat the level, but I had mixed feelings about this plant. On one hand, the way it defeated zombies was unique, but on the other hand, the way the zombies went down was pretty gross and somewhat disturbing. I decided not to think about that at the moment, as it was starting to get late, so I placed my iPad on my bedside table, did my evening routine, and went to sleep. The sunlight streaming through the window woke me up the next morning. When I opened my eyes, I was blasted by this awful smell. It smelled like it was coming from my bedside table, so I sat up and looked over. Then, I let out a quiet gasp as I jerked back slightly, for there were tiny green mushrooms growing on my bedside table, surrounding my iPad. Where did those come from? I said to myself. I got out of bed and was just about to take care of the tiny fungi cluster when my mom entered the room. When she saw the shrooms, she got angry and asked me why I brought mushrooms into the house. I tried to tell her that I didn't and that they were there when I woke up, but she wouldn't listen. She took my iPad away and told me that I wouldn't get it back until all those mushrooms were removed. So I grabbed some cleaning supplies from the hall closet and cleaned up the infestation of plants. It was a long, slow, and disgusting process, but I managed to remove every mushroom on my table. I got my iPad back and the day resumed like normal. The next day I awoke and was again hit with the awful smell, but this time it smelled much more foul. I sat up and saw another small cluster of tiny mushrooms growing on my bedside table. "Oh, come on, again?" I said, now more annoyed. I was about to take care of this new cluster when I heard my doorbell ring. I went downstairs and opened the door. It was my friends, Stanley and Matt. They asked me if we could hang out for a few hours. I asked my mom, and she said she was okay with it, so I let them in. Stanley asked, "What do you want to do?" "Well," I replied, "I was thinking we could go to the skate park today." After all, I got a new skateboard for my birthday and I'd love to try it out. Nah, said Matt. How about we watch some funny videos on your iPad? And before I could say anything, Matt bolted up the stairs to my room. Stanley and I ran after him, but he was just way too quick. We just reached the top of the stairs when we suddenly heard Matt shout, "What the hell?" We ran to my room and saw Matt, staring in disbelief at the infestation of mushrooms growing on my bedside table. When he turned and saw us, he asked, "Hey Jake, you mind explaining what the hell those things are?" I said that they were there when I woke up, as well as yesterday, but I cleaned those ones up, and I had no idea how they came back, or how they even got there in the first place. "Well, what should we do?" Stanley asked. It was then that Matt decided to eat one of the mushrooms, just to gross us out. I thought nothing of that at first, but then I realized something. The mushrooms growing on my bedside table were a sickly shade of green, with little warts covering their caps. They slightly resembled the Putrid Shroom from the game. I quickly yelled, "Matt, don't eat one of those! Just leave them alone, I'll take care of them." "Calm down, man," Matt replied. "They're just mushrooms. It's not like they're gonna kill me or anything." Matt plucked a mushroom off the desk. Stanley and I tried to persuade him not to eat it, but it was too late. Matt plopped the mushroom in his mouth and started to eat. It was very disgusting, especially since he was eating with his mouth open. After a few minutes, Matt finished and swallowed with a loud and exaggerated gulp. "See, that wasn't so... Oh!" Matt groaned as he clutched his stomach. "I'll go grab a bucket," Stanley said. But he wasn't quick enough. Matt upchucked onto the floor. A large puddle of vomit splattered and stained the carpet-covered floor of my bedroom, and there were small droplets of blood mixed in from what I could see. Then Matt fell onto the floor once he was done. Stanley and I then watched as the giant green stain started to slowly bubble. That nasty plant was going to make its way into the real world. I didn't know what to do, but I had to act quickly. So without thinking, I dashed to the bedside table and grabbed my iPad, and then I started bashing it against one of the table's corners. After 5 swings, the iPad's screen shattered. When that happened, the boiling green stain dissolved completely, and all the tiny green mushrooms disintegrated into dust. Stanley and I shook Matt and asked him if he was okay, but he didn't respond. We quickly got my mom and rushed Matt off to the hospital. Unfortunately, the nurse told us that Matt had lost a large quantity of his blood volume, and that his stomach acid had splattered onto his vital organs. They didn't melt, but they were severely damaged. So as a result, Matt was dead. When we arrived back home, Mom asked why Stanley and I didn't rush to help Matt. We tried to explain what happened in the most sensible way possible, but she didn't listen. She was also furious that I broke my iPad. "Do you know how much money I paid for that?" my mom asked angrily. "Mom, I pretty much had to," I protested. "It was the only way to stop that plant from entering the real world." She didn't believe me. She thought I was just making up excuses. "Listen, Jake, I will buy you a new iPad, but you're going to wait a month before you can use it. Do you understand?" my mom concluded. "Yes, Mom," I sighed. Things are pretty much back to normal now. I have my new iPad, and I've re-downloaded most of my games on it. Well, minus Plants vs. Zombies and Plants vs. Zombies 2. I don't know if the Putrid Shroom is also obtainable in PvZ1, but I'm not taking any chances. So, if you're playing either PvZ game, and you come across some sickly green looking mushroom, don't use it.